Welcome back. Section 2, Sādhana Pāda, Sutra 50. Bhaya Vyantara Stamba Vrittir Bhaya Vyantara Stamba Vrittir Deshakala Samkhyabhi Paridrushto Durgasuksma. Let's try that again. Bhaya Vyantara Stamba Vrittir Deshakala Samkhyabhi Paridrushto Durgasuksma. Sukshma. Durgasukshma. Durgasa sukshma. Suksma. Durgasuksma. That last one is a little challenging. All right. Hopefully I got it good enough for now. Outer, external, internal, suppressed, paralyzed, stopped suddenly, modification, by place, time, and number, measured, regulated, prolonged, and subtle, attenuated. It is in external, internal, or suppressed modification, is regulated by place, time, and number, and becomes progressively prolonged and subtle. In the sutra given above, the various factors involved in the practice of pranayama have been dealt with in a very terse manner. The first factor in the position in which the breath is held. There can be 3 modes of performing kumbhaka, and the 3 kinds of pranayama referred to in this sutra depend upon these. Either the breath is held outside after expiration, or held inside after inspiration, or just stopped wherever it is at the moment. It is the position or manner in which the breath is held or stopped which determines the kind of pranayama. The second factor is the place where pranayama is performed. This will obviously have to be taken into account in determining the period for which pranayama is performed, the food which is taken, and other things. A sadhaka who is practicing pranayama in the tropics will have to adopt a different regime from the one which is suited for another practicing high up in the Himalayas. The third factor is the time. Time here means not only the relative duration of paraka, rachaka, and kumbhaka, but also the time of year in which pranayama is being practiced. Diet, etc. has to be changed according to the season. Number, obviously, refers to the number of rounds at each sitting and the number of sittings in one day. The sadhaka generally starts with a small number of rounds at each sitting and gradually and cautiously increases the number according to the instructions of his teacher. After pointing out the factors which are involved in regulating the practice of pranayama, the author gives 2 words which indicate the nature of the objective toward which the efforts of the sadhaka should be directed. In the first place, the period of kumbhaka has to be very gradually and cautiously prolonged. The fourth kind of pranayama referred to in the next sutra cannot be practiced until the sadhaka has acquired the capacity to practice kumbhaka for fairly long periods of time. Not only has he to prolong the period of kumbhaka, but he has also to work in the direction of gradually transferring the process from the outer to the inner, invisible plane. This means that the pranayama, from being merely a control and manipulation of the visible process of breathing, becomes a process of controlling and manipulating the pranic currents flowing in the pranamaya kosha. This transference of activity from the outer to the inner plane can come only after kumbhaka can be practiced easily without any strain for fairly long periods, but it must come if pranayama is to be used for its real purpose in yogic discipline. Sutra 51. Bhaya Bhyantara Visayaksepi Chaturtha. Bhaya Bhyantara Visayaksepi Chaturtha. External and internal, range, sphere, domain, going beyond, is the fourth variety of pranayama. That pranayama, which goes beyond the sphere of internal and external, is the fourth variety. The fourth and the highest kind of pranayama referred to in this sutra transcends the movements of the breath altogether. The external breath is kept suspended in any position, external or internal, and there is nothing to show that any kind of activity is going on. And yet, the pranic currents in the pranamaya kosha, which are now under the complete control of the sadhaka, are being manipulated and directed with a view to bring about the desired changes in the vehicle. For conducting operations of such delicacy and importance, it is necessary that the sadhaka should be able to see clearly the mechanism of the pranamaya kosha and direct the currents of prana deliberately and unerringly. Such direct vision, which means clairvoyance of the lowest kind, develops naturally and automatically during the course of pranayama practice. The fourth kind of pranayama referred to in the sutra under discussion is the real pranayama, for which all the previous practices are merely a preparation. What takes place during the course of these practices, how the pranic currents are used to arouse kundalini, how the kundalini activates the chakras in the sushumna, is not mentioned by Patanjali, because all these things of a practical nature, which are fraught with dangerous possibilities, are taught by the guru personally to the chela. Patanjali has throughout dealt with general principles and left out instructions with regard to practical details. Sutra 52. Tata Ksiyate Prakasha Varanam. Varanam. Something about that word, I just love it. Tata Ksiyate Prakasha Varanam. Then from that dissolves, disappears, of light covering. From that is dissolved the covering of light. In this sutra and the next are given two results of pranayama practice which are of great importance to the yogi. The first is the disappearance of the covering of light. Many commentators have gone completely off the track in the interpretation of this sutra under discussion, mistaking this light to be the light of the soul. They thus attribute to pranayama practice accomplishment of results which appear after considerable success has been gained in the subsequent practices of dhāraṇā, dhyana, and samadhi. This misinterpretation is all the more surprising in view of the sutra which follows. If pranayama prepares the mind for the practice of dhāraṇā, which is the first step in mental control, how can it bring about the removal of the covering of light of the soul, which is the culmination of mental control? The covering of light referred to in this sutra is obviously not used in reference to the light of the soul, but to the light or luminosity associated with the subtler vehicles, associated with and interpenetrating the physical vehicle. The distribution of prana in the pranamaya kosha and the development of the psychic centers in the ordinary individual is such that he is quite insensitive to these subtler planes. When, through the practice of pranayama, the necessary changes in the distribution of prana have been made and the psychic centers have been activated, the mechanism of the subtler bodies comes into close and more intimate touch with the physical brain, and it is possible to become aware of the subtler vehicles and the luminosity which is associated with them. An additional advantage to the sadhaka of this contact with the subtler vehicles is that the mental images which he has to work with in dhāraṇā and dhyana become very precise and almost tangible. The cloudy and blurred mental images which an ordinary person is able to form in his brain are replaced by clear-cut and sharp images in the subtler vehicles. These are manipulated and controlled with far greater ease. 53. Dhāraṇāsu cha yogyata manasa. Dhāraṇāsu cha yogyata manasa. 4 stages of concentration and fitness of the mind. And the fitness of the mind for concentration. The second result of pranayama practice is that it prepares the mind for the practice of dhāraṇā, dhyana, and samadhi, antaranga yoga. The capacity to form vivid and sharp mental images and to be able to see them clearly is necessary for practicing dhāraṇā effectively. As long as our mental images are blurred and confused, it is not easy to concentrate on them or manipulate them, as all people who try to meditate know from practical experience. The mind does not seem to get a good hold on them, and they tend to slip away easily. Pranayama, by removing this difficulty, facilitates concentration to a great extent. To say that pranayama is absolutely necessary for dhāraṇā will perhaps not be justifiable in view of the success attained by followers of other schools of yoga also, but that it helps enormously in the practice of dhāraṇā there can be no doubt. That is why Patanjali has made it an integral part of his yogic technique. Okay, so I'm going to do 54 and 55 in the next video, and that will close off this section. So the next one, 54, pratyahara or abstraction is, as it were, the imitation by the senses of the mind by withdrawing themselves from their objects. And I'm probably going to have to practice those words because they're pretty long. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time.